Hello, Virgo. I almost did not record this one. And I need you to understand why before we go a single step further. Because what came through when I sat with your energy today was not something I could simply organize and deliver with a straight face. It made me stop. It made me sit back in my chair and just breathe for a moment, because what the universe is showing me about your situation right now is equal parts extraordinary and almost painfully ironic. The people who underestimated you are now the ones calling you the mastermind. Let that land for a second. The very same people who counted you out, who whispered about you, who built entire narratives around the idea that you did not know what you were doing, who smiled in your face while privately questioning your intelligence, your vision, your capacity to see the full picture of anything. Those people are now sitting in rooms together, and your name is coming up. And the word they keep reaching for, the word that keeps rising to the surface, no matter how uncomfortable it makes them to say it out loud, is mastermind. Stay with me, because this reading has layers, and every single layer is going to hit differently. Let me tell you how this message came through, because it arrived in a way I was not expecting. And I think the way it arrived tells you something important about the nature of what is happening in your life right now. It did not come through as a gentle impression or a broad energetic theme that I then shaped into something readable. It came through sharp, clear, almost urgent, like someone on the other side of the veil had been waiting for exactly the right moment to pull back a curtain and say, look at what is actually happening around this person. Look at what they cannot see from where they are standing, and make sure they understand every detail of it. So that is what I am going to do, detail by detail, layer by layer, because you deserve to see the full picture of what has been unfolding around you, most of it completely without your knowledge, and all of it moving in a direction that is so much more in your favor than you currently realize. Let me start at the beginning, the real beginning, not the beginning of whatever recent event or interaction brought you to this video, but the beginning of the dynamic that has been playing out between you and the people I am going to speak about today. There was a moment, and you know exactly what moment I am referring to, even if you have not consciously identified it as the origin point, where these people made a decision about you, a collective decision, an agreement, spoken or unspoken, that you were someone they could afford to overlook, to underestimate, to place into a category in their minds that was smaller and simpler and less significant than the category you actually belong in. And this decision was not based on evidence. It was based on their own comfort. Because here is the truth about why people underestimate others, Virgo, and I want you to hear this clearly. When someone places you in a box that is too small for who you actually are, it is never really about you. It is about them. It is about the gap between their own capacity and yours becoming too uncomfortable to acknowledge directly. It is about the threat that genuine intelligence and genuine vision poses to people who are operating from a much shallower depth. They underestimated you because fully estimating you would have required them to confront something about themselves that they were not ready to confront. And so they chose the smaller story, the more convenient story, the story where you were ordinary and manageable and not particularly worth worrying about. That story has just collapsed. Let me tell you what I am seeing in the energy of these people right now, because this is the part that came through with the most vivid clarity and the most almost cinematic detail. There is a conversation that happened recently in a space where you were being discussed as you have been discussed many times before. Except this time, the discussion took a turn that nobody in that room anticipated. Someone brought up something you did, or something you said, or a decision you made that is now played out in full view of everyone involved. And as they were discussing it, as they were pulling apart the details and examining the outcome and trying to understand how it unfolded the way it did, someone went quiet. And in that quiet, something shifted in the room, because the quiet was the sound of someone putting together pieces that had been scattered across a long stretch of time, connecting dots that, when connected, painted a picture that was nothing like the picture they had been working from. And then that person said it, not with celebration, not with admiration in the generous sense, but with the specific quality of reluctant acknowledgement that people produce when they are forced by evidence to revise a belief they were comfortable holding. They called you the mastermind. And the embarrassment in that room, Virgo, was palpable, because saying that word out loud meant admitting collectively that every assumption they had made about you was wrong, every dismissal, every eye roll, every time someone in that circle had minimized your perspective or overridden your input or confidently moved in the opposite direction from what you were suggesting. All of it was wrong, and they all knew it at the same time. I want to speak to something very specific now, because I feel it strongly in your energy, and I think it is one of the most important pieces of this entire reading. You saw this coming, not in an arrogant way, not in the way of someone who was plotting or maneuvering or trying to engineer a particular outcome, but in that quiet, clear, deeply Virgo way of simply being able to read a situation with an accuracy that most people cannot match. You saw the trajectory, you understood the variables, you processed the information available and arrived at conclusions that others were not willing or not able to reach. And you said something, or you tried to, maybe directly, maybe indirectly, maybe in the careful, measured way that Virgos communicate when they understand that their perception is operating at a level that the people around them are not quite ready to receive. But you made your perspective known in some form, and they did not listen. Not because your perspective lacked merit, but because acknowledging your perspective would have meant acknowledging your vision, your capacity, the specific quality of your intelligence that makes you dangerous to people who prefer to operate in environments where their own limitations are not made visible by comparison. So they dismissed you and they moved forward with their own plan or their own interpretation or their own version of the truth. And now here they are, sitting in a room, using the word mastermind, and wishing with everything in them that they had just listened when you told them. I need to pause here for a moment, because something is coming through very specifically for a portion of you watching this, and I do not want to move past it without addressing it directly. For some of you, the situation I am describing involves a professional environment, a workplace, a business, a collaborative project or venture where your contributions were consistently minimized or attributed to something other than what they actually were, which was your exceptional ability to think several steps ahead of everyone else in the room. There were people in that environment who positioned themselves as the visionaries, the decision makers, the ones with the strategic capacity, while quietly benefiting from your input without acknowledging its source. And something has now happened, some outcome, some result, some development that has made the source undeniable. The fingerprints are on it, your fingerprints. And the people who spent so long pretending those fingerprints were not there are now being forced to name them out loud. For others, this is personal. A relationship dynamic, a family situation, a social circle where you were the one who held the clearest view of what was actually happening beneath the surface, who understood the people involved with an accuracy that made others uncomfortable, who predicted developments that others insisted were impossible or unlikely, and those developments have now occurred exactly as you understood they would. And the people who told you that you were overthinking or projecting or being paranoid are now standing in the reality you described to them, and they cannot look you in the eye. Both of these situations carry the same energy, the energy of truth catching up to dismissal, of vision being vindicated by time. Let me go deeper into the embarrassment piece, because it is not a small thing, and it deserves its own space in this reading. Embarrassment of this specific kind, the embarrassment of having underestimated someone and having that underestimation exposed publicly and irrefutably, is one of the most uncomfortable human experiences. It does not simply feel bad in the moment, it retroactively rewrites every interaction that came before it, every instance of dismissal, every moment of condescension. Every time someone in that circle spoke about you with less respect than you deserved becomes, in hindsight, evidence of their own limitation rather than yours. And they know that now. They are sitting in that rewriting right now, going back through the timeline and seeing every moment differently, seeing themselves differently, seeing the gap between who they assumed you were and who you have now revealed yourself to be, and understanding that the gap was never in you, it was always in their perception. And here is what makes this particularly significant for you, Virgo. You did not have to do anything dramatic to create this moment. You did not have to campaign or confront or make a performance of your intelligence. You simply continued being who you are, moving with your characteristic precision and depth and quiet, unshakable clarity. And the truth of who you are, sustained over enough time and through enough circumstances, eventually became impossible for even the most committed skeptic to argue with. Your consistency was your strategy. Even if you did not think of it that way, does this resonate with what you have been experiencing? Have you felt the particular frustration of seeing something clearly that the people around you refused to see, and then had to watch in silence as events unfolded exactly as you understood they would? Let me know in the comments, because I feel so many Virgos are carrying this very specific experience right now, and your story deserves to be witnessed. Now let me speak to what is happening inside the people who are having this reckoning, because I feel their energy very clearly, and I think understanding their interior experience right now will give you something valuable. They are not simply embarrassed. They are disoriented, because the framework they were operating from, the framework in which you occupied a particular and limited position, was not just an opinion they held about you. It was structural. It was load-bearing. It held up other things, other beliefs about themselves, about their own superiority in certain areas, about the social and intellectual hierarchy of the group or the dynamic they were operating in. When you pull a load-bearing wall, everything above it shifts, and that is what is happening for them right now. The acknowledgement that you were the mastermind is not just about you. It is about everything they built on top of the assumption that you were not. And Now that assumption is gone and the structure is unstable, and they are scrambling quietly, internally, to figure out what they actually know and what they only believed because it was convenient. That scrambling is not comfortable, and the discomfort of it is going to express itself in different ways with different people. Some will come to you directly or indirectly, with acknowledgement, with a change in behavior, with a sudden and perhaps surprising respect that was not visible before. Others will retreat, will create distance rather than sit in the discomfort of proximity to the person whose capacity they so badly misjudged. And still others will attempt, perhaps unsuccessfully, to rewrite the narrative in a way that preserves some version of their original position. Watch for all three and let none of them move you from your center. Inhale, because here is what I want to make sure lands above everything else in this reading. Your vindication is real. The recognition that is now being given to your vision and your intelligence and your capacity is real, and it is deserved, and you are allowed to receive it with the unguarded satisfaction of someone who has been patient through a long season of being undervalued. But your power was never in their acknowledgement. It was in you before they acknowledged it. It was in you while they dismissed it. It was in you on every single day when you operated with full clarity and full vision and full integrity while people around you were confidently wrong. The mastermind was never something they created by naming it. It was something that existed in you long before this moment, long before this room, long before this conversation where someone finally, reluctantly, almost painfully had to admit out loud what the evidence had been telling them for a very long time. You were always this. Their acknowledgement simply makes it visible to the people who were not paying the right kind of attention. Let me speak to what comes after this moment, because the energy does not stop here, and I want you to understand where this is heading. The revelation of your capacity in the minds of the people who underestimated you does not simply close a chapter, it opens one. Because once people revise their understanding of who you are and what you are capable of, the way they engage with you changes. The invitations change. The conversations change. The degree to which your input is sought and genuinely considered changes. Doors that were previously closed, not because of any explicit decision, but simply because of the unconscious architecture of how these people understood your position, are now opening, not with fanfare, quietly, in the way that shifts in perception always express themselves through small changes in behavior that accumulate into something significantly different from what existed before. And you are going to have to decide what you want to do with those open doors. Because not every door that opens deserves to be walked through. Not every invitation extended by people who previously dismissed you deserves your immediate and enthusiastic acceptance. Part of the gift of this moment is the discernment it gives you, the clarity about who was in your corner before this revelation and who is only now arriving because the evidence has made your value undeniable. The ones who arrive now are welcome, but the ones who were there before, who saw your capacity before the room caught up, who respected your vision when it was still being dismissed by others, those are the people who deserve the deepest place in your circle going forward. Virgo, as I move toward the close of this reading, I want to speak to something I feel sitting just beneath the surface of your energy, something quiet, something that might be surprising to the people around you who are currently in the middle of their reckoning about who you actually are. You are not gloating, and you could be. You have every right to feel the full satisfaction of a moment that most people never get to experience in such a complete and public form. The moment when every person who counted you out has to count you back in. When every dismissal reverses itself into acknowledgement. When the word mastermind is used not as a compliment freely given, but as a reluctant, embarrassed, unavoidable concession to the truth, you could wear that triumphantly, and no one would blame you. But that is not what I feel in your energy. What I feel is something steadier than triumph, something quieter and more grounded. The specific peace that comes from having always known your own worth, from having never actually needed the acknowledgement even as you deserved it, from understanding that the validation of people who were not seeing clearly was never the source of your power and is not now. That peace, that groundedness, that ability to receive this moment without being destabilized by it in either direction, neither collapsing into desperate relief nor inflating into ego, is itself a demonstration of exactly the quality that earned you the word mastermind in the first place. The depth of your characters, what your vision runs through, and both of them are on full display right now. So carry this with you as you move forward, not as a trophy, not as ammunition, not as something to reference in future conflicts or hold over the heads of the people who are currently sitting in their embarrassment. Carry it as confirmation, as the specific, undeniable, externally validated confirmation of something you have always carried internally, that your perception is real, that your vision is accurate, that the quiet, careful, precise way you read situations and people and possibilities is not overthinking or paranoia or excessive analysis. It is your gift. It has always been your gift. And now the people who needed to see it most have finally seen it. Rest in that, not with performance, not with noise, but with the deep, settled, completely Virgo satisfaction of someone who saw it coming from a mile away and had the grace and the patience to simply wait for everyone else to catch up. They caught up, Virgo, and the view from where you are standing is extraordinary. If this reading touched something true in you today, please share it with a Virgo who needs to feel this energy right now. And leave me a comment below telling me how this landed, what it confirmed, what it stirred. Tell me about the moment you saw it coming before anyone else did. I want to hear your story. I read every single word you share with me. I carry your energy long after this video ends. Until next time, Virgo. Keep seeing clearly, keep trusting what you see, and know that the truth of who you are has never needed anyone's permission to be real. It simply needed time, and time has done its work beautifully.